My name is David Ziegler. I'm head of Children's Services at Eisenhower Public Library, and I've been working at that position at this library since 1983. The upcoming referendum is very important. There are two questions on the ballot, and both questions and both parts of the referendum are equally important. We definitely need the first part to pass, which will allow taxes to be raised and additional revenues provided so that we could buy a new site and buy new materials and build a larger library to help serve the community into the next century. But we also need the second part of the referendum to pass it's just as crucial, because a building is fine and new materials are fine, but a library is more than just a building. It's the people that work in it. And without expertise and without the people to run the building, it's just going to be like a warehouse. And you can wander around a warehouse forever. You need people that are able to find the books you need, to find the information you need. Not every library is going to have every piece of information you have, but we should be able to locate it for you, given enough time. And we need staffing to be able to have people to order books, to get books from other libraries, to help you with questions on how to use our materials, to help you find materials, to teach you how to use things in the library, such as our CD-ROM products or simply the book computer. So both parts of this referendum are very important. The building is crucial. We have to have a new building. We can't continue to operate in this small building. But even with our building now, there's sometimes times when we have difficulty staffing it if not everyone is available or if someone is sick. We have to have additional staff to man this new building and to offer the increased hours that we're going to be offering with Sunday hours. So I hope you will think about this, and I hope that you will realize that both parts of the referendum are crucial and that they must pass in order for us to serve you in the 21st century. How badly?
That sounds very good. Okay. Why don't we just build on to the additional current building?
One reason for not being able to simply build onto the current additional building, which I know some people have said, is that architecturally you cannot add another story to the current building. The only addition that could be made would be in the back part of the building. This could be made, but by statute, by law, if you increase the footage of a public building like this, you have to increase the parking. We would have no way to increase the parking, plus the addition we would make would not be adequate for the next 20 or 30 years. It might be a stopgap measure for maybe 5 years, and then once we've done it, that's all we could do. And also, we would not be allowed to do that because we wouldn't be able to allow enough parking. And anytime you increase a library building, the circulation increases and you have a lot more traffic. So parking is important. In addition to which, we need a lot more space that we can get on this small lot.
What are some of the problems with the current site?
There are many problems with the current site. Anybody who's ever driven on this section of Olcott Avenue knows that this is an incredibly rough road. Both the staff and the patrons have had to wait long periods of time sometimes to try to get around the trucks that are unloading. In the evening, there's parking on both sides of the street. It's hard to just even get down the street safely without having to duck in and out of parking spaces to avoid oncoming cars. So the street is one big problem. We are centrally located, which is important, but there are other locations where we can be centrally located. The building, if you've ever been in here during a heavy rainstorm, you've probably seen the occasional wastebasket catching rain from either a water coming in from one of the heating or cooling units. So that's certainly not an attractive feature. If you've been in the building recently, you know that the shelves have been moved closer together. The aisles are much more narrow. I'm already noticing that there are more and more near collisions as people round a shelf and you don't see somebody coming. In addition to which, it's almost impossible now to be in an aisle and have somebody else move through that aisle without one or the other having to give or having to flatten themselves against the shelves. It's difficult when you have as many books as we have in the collection to find books when the shelves are completely full. And with the addition of some new shelving this fall, we have a little bit of room on the shelf, but that room is going to quickly disappear because we're constantly buying new books and we're constantly having to weed, but we constantly buy new books in order to try to keep up-to-date information and popular reading materials available. So overcrowding is a big problem. There's also problems with the staff work areas. There are often overcrowded and not particularly good light. There's also the major problem of noise in the library. In the new building, we would hopefully have different sections, different zones of building where we would have circulation, which is a noise area. We would have be able to have a different area for children's, which is another noise area, and even different areas for newspaper areas, just so we can kind of keep the noise to a reasonable level where people can quietly study and read without having to look up from their papers or from their books because they hear children crying or the phone ringing or someone complaining about an overdue.
Right. Okay, tell me about some of the problems you have with story time and space in the meeting room.
Story time is a great continuing program that we do. It does require space and kind of theoretically quiet space to have story time in, both because children are easily distracted and I'm easily distracted too. But you need to have kind of it's better to have a self-contained space. So we have been, for years, using this meeting room that we're currently filming in for story hour. The problem with the meeting room is that when you're using it for story hour, it can't be used for other things. It's a pretty good workable room. There are times when if we want to do crafts or in here, the fact that there's a carpet on the floor can be a little bit of a problem. We often have needs to have more than one meeting at a time. We might want to have a program. We might also want to have a staff meeting, or somebody may have wanted to simply come in here in our current situation and use this as an extra quiet area to either study, or the staff may be trying to work on, someone may be trying to work on a project. It's noisy out front. It's equally noisy in the back work area. So this room becomes a kind of all-purpose room, and there's sometimes people vying for the use of this room. It has never been a problem with story hour. Story hour has gotten priority, but it would be nice to have a room especially designed for story hour. We badly need conference rooms for people to use, quiet study, additional quiet study rooms. So as wonderful as the meeting room is, we need more meeting room space, and we need additional space that people can use to meet in to satisfy our current needs, and our future needs are even going to be beyond that.
I'll get myself a shot of the carpet.
Of course, you might notice that the carpet is...
I'm getting a nice stained spot.
Stained, yeah. There's some wonderful stains on the carpet. Carpet is fairly new, about
Mhm.
4 years old, and it already looks sort of disreputable. But it's in a lot better shape than the last carpet was.
The orange carpet.
Yes, the scary orange carpet, which was the finished off, taking care of the really, really ugly orange carpet, which was very scary.
Okay, there has been talk, I'm going to tell you, it's about the problem with how Eisenhower and the school libraries, how they work together, and how one cannot take the place of the other.
Okay, yeah, there has been some people that have suggested that either Eisenhower Library should take all of the collections of the various school libraries, or that Eisenhower is really not that viable an institution, and that we're just only serving children and we're only serving people that read newspapers. This is pretty, I find this to be a pretty silly thought process, but basically most libraries have a specific mission and goal. School libraries, in theory, their goal is to continue and supply materials for the specific curriculum, the specific subjects that are being taught. The school libraries in this area are doing a good job, but Eisenhower Library annually spends a great deal of money, both in fiction and nonfiction books, that help children do their assignments. The school libraries are only open generally when the schools are in session. They're generally not open in the summer unless they're open just for summer school. They're not open in the evenings. Eisenhower Library is. We both are able to help the schools, and in some places, in many cases, have unique sources that the schools don't have. The individual school libraries cannot afford to buy some of the reference sources that we can. So therefore, children are able to come here and get additional information that they can use and need to use in order to complete their assignments. And we're not just talking about elementary, we're not just talking about junior high, we're not just talking about high school. There are college students that come in and use us. There are some areas of the collection where they can have enough materials to help them, or we can send for other materials, which is also the case in high school assignments sometimes, or people are working on a science fair project. On the other hand, Eisenhower is definitely not just for children. Every morning there are large groups of adults, some seniors, some not seniors, that are used in here. People are definitely reading the newspapers here. We have a number of newspaper subscriptions, I think probably somewhere between 16 and 20 different newspaper subscriptions. In addition, we have over 200 magazines. These are used both by people working on assignments, by people reading for pleasure, by people that are trying to research a particular problem, whether it's looking in popular mechanics on how to solve some home building problem, some home repair problem, whether people are looking in some of our computer magazines for new ideas or for new technology, whether people are looking in Consumer Reports or Car and Driver for information on buying new cars, whether they're looking at other consumer information, maybe FDA consumer or other things, whether they're looking in magazines about fashion information, whether they're simply looking in news magazines. One of the purposes of a public library is to provide for continuing education, and hopefully we all want to continue to learn throughout our lives. And the school libraries are not really available to the population once they have graduated from school. You can go to college libraries, etc., but those, again, a university library or any special library is particularly suited for their curriculum. They're not necessarily going to have the general popular information that a public library is going to have. Multi-use libraries have been used in some cases, but there can be problems of turf and problems of, is this really more children's or is this really more public. I really think that a public library has a broader clientele, and we try to serve a lot of different needs. I think we do it well. In order to do a better job, we really need to have a building that is designed to be a public library. Working in a building that was designed to be a sheet metal factory is not the worst thing in the world, but it is just not designed as far as electrical, as far as lighting, as far as heating, to really allow the public to relax and to be able to have a quiet place with good technology and good support to continue to supply their information needs. So I really think we need a public library in this area for Harwood Heights and Orange. I've also heard people say that perhaps our patrons can be served just as well by going to other public libraries. This, I think, is rather irresponsible. I think that the community deserves a good public library. And why should our community be a burden on other communities? Why should we be expecting our community members to have to go over to Schiller Park, or to go over to Elmwood Park, or to go all the way downtown to Chicago Public Library? We should be able to provide good services, library services in this community. That is providing that our citizens feel that a library is a useful service. I would certainly think it is, but that's for our citizens to decide what their priorities are. And hopefully, one of their strong priorities is going to be a public library that is designed to be a public library and that can be a permanent home for education and continuing to learn and support of both learning for students and for adults.
Very good. I like the way you got back on topic after talking about that. Is there anything that I didn't mention that you'd like to mention in the videotape?
Can you turn it off just for a second? Okay, I want to emphasize that it's extremely important that voters vote yes for both parts of the referendum. We need increased funds to build a new library, but we also desperately need increased funds to operate that library, to be able to pay for increased electricity costs, for increased cost of staffing, to have additional hours of staffing. Sunday hours is something that a lot of people have wanted. Even with a new building, unless we have enough money to staff the building, we would not be able to be open those hours. And I know that's important to a number of members of the community. So it's crucial. The building could certainly be one of the most beautiful buildings in the world, or one of the most workable, practical libraries in the world, but it isn't going to help anyone when it's closed. And we need to have funds in order to operate it, to be able to serve the community. Another point that I'd like to make is that I think it's very important for people to think about the future, to think about what's important, what their priorities are. I would hope that citizens of Norwich and Harwood Heights feel that it's a priority to have a facility that is serving all the people in the community, not just one special interest group or not just one special age. The public library, to me, is one of the unique institutions in any community, but especially in Harwood Heights and Norwich. There aren't really any other institutions that will serve you from preschool all the way up into the later years. And we do have services, we have programs, we have materials that serve all members of the community. I hope that the citizens of Norwich and Harwood Heights will think about this, will also think about the value of education and of culture and of learning, and vote yes on both sides of the referendum to create a permanent home for Eisenhower Library that will last well into the 21st century.
Very good.
And I am the Community Services Librarian at Eisenhower Public Library.
Let's do it again a little closer. Don't mean to be
My
scary.
name is Penny Blubaugh, and
Ready?
My name is Penny Blubaugh, and I am the Community Services Librarian at Eisenhower Public Library.
What is your name?
Andrew A. Hay. Can
And-
you hear me?
No, actually, if you can be a little bit louder, that'd be good.
Tell me when.
All right, there you go.
Andrew A. Hay.
And how do you feel about a tax increase for the library?
I think taxes are always disliked, but libraries are a necessary unit of our village. Without libraries, we lose some of our basic education. And I feel we should be willing to pay taxes for the children that are coming after us, because we had libraries given to us when we were children. We lived around here and in Chicago. Someone else built the libraries, and I believe it's our responsibility. The senior citizens should remember that even though his children are 30, 40, 50 years old, they are still his children, and he should look at a library the same way. Some seniors complain that they never use the library. That's not an answer. I hope they never have to use the fire department. Now, that is how I feel about it.
As a senior, how do you think the tax increase will affect other seniors like yourself?
They will complain, but they have to remember this is a necessary item. This is something that will benefit everybody.
What is the library planning to do with the money they collect? What are they going to build?
They're going to build construct a larger building so that they have more room for more books and up-to-date electronic equipment. This library is overcrowded right now.
Do you feel the library is a valuable asset to the community of Norwich and Howard Heights? And if so, why?
A library will upgrade the village. It will make your property more valuable. Good libraries and good schools enhance your property values.
Is there anything you'd like to tell people about anything about this upcoming library referendum?
Well, I believe that it's their duty to think about the taxes and not just say, well, I can't afford it, but think about what the money is going for. It's going to build a new library. This is something we need.
Very good. Problem right now at Eisenhower.
It's rather crowded, so that when you sit down and you wish to utilize the books and read or copy data from the books, your chair protrudes in the aisle and the children have to crawl all over you. It's not very comfortable.